Hello and welcome to The Morning Bean, a show not about coffee. Instead, we enjoy our coffee while discussing current events. I'm your host, Denny London, and today's episode is called Politicizing the DOJ is Not Okay. Before we jump into the downfall of society and possibly the destruction of our judicial branch, please consider giving the show a follow and a 5-star review. It really helps with those crazy robot algorithms. Algorithms. On today's show, we are going to discuss how things just don't seem to add up in our judicial system anymore. It used to be, if you do the crime, you do the time. But now all we see is a two-tiered justice system heavily leaning in one favor. Keep listening to find out what favor that is. As always, we'll have the TV ratings, and you probably shouldn't have tweeted that, but first, 3 quick ones. Our first quick one, Chris Cuomo. You remember this guy? He's the one America saw every night on CNN, joking around with former governor/brother, well, currently still his brother, Andrew Cuomo, during the early days of COVID. Chris got fired from CNN not too long after Andrew resigned for sexual harassment allegations. In my opinion, Andrew should be in prison for murdering the elderly and lying about COVID numbers, but that story is for another episode. This one's about Chris. Anyways, Chris got fired, or as the media put it, permanently suspended, for not disclosing being an advisor to his piece of shit brother. He was also using his media connections to control the narrative and his brother's image, like how they see him. For a bit, it looked like Andrew Cuomo would run for president. Obviously, he did not. I have good news. Chris is back, baby. He, if that is still the preferred pronoun it would like to use, is returned to prime time, this time on News Nation, which will honestly greatly improve their ratings. They might even compete with CNN and MSNBC now during that time slot. And according to the New York Post, Chris's new show is due to premiere this fall. I personally look forward to the first episode. I think the ratings will be big for that first episode. We should immediately know if this man has any journalistic integrity or if he's still just an extension of the propaganda machine. Our second quick one. Speaking of News Nation, they report Biden releases more oil reserves. Will it matter? The U.S. Department of Energy will sell an additional 20 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, SPR, in an effort to stabilize the global oil supply and further curb prices at the pump, the Biden administration announced Tuesday. I thought it was already purchased. Why do we have to sell it again? But there's a chance you haven't heard about this story. That's because 83% of news outlets that reported on this story lean right or fall in the center. According to News Nation partner Ground News, which monitors coverage based on media bias, only 17% of outlets covering the announcement lean left, according to Ground News Blind Spot report. The White House said Tuesday announcement is part of an ongoing effort to mitigate the Putin price hike and marks the 5th such release from the SPR that President Joe Biden has authorized since the war began. So far, the United States has sold 125 million barrels from the reserve into market, 70 million of which have already been delivered to purchasers, according to the administration. The article later states, earlier this month, the Biden administration drew criticism after Reuters reported that more than 5 million barrels of SPR oil was exported to Europe and Asia instead of being used at home. We reported on that too. I think we used that article. Now, that was actually a fair and pretty balanced report from News Nation. Maybe this Cuomo plus News Nation thing is a match made in heaven. The Biden administration continues to misuse our oil reserves. Think about what these reserves are intended for. Times of war, not to lower hiked gas prices that your policies have caused. And speaking of failed policies, our final quick one. Take a listen to the top 2 headlines on Apple News. NPR, another big Fed rate hike is here to battle inflation. The economy hangs in the balance. The Wall Street Journal. Senate approves $280 billion bill to boost U.S. science chip production. With inflation being at a 40-year high, it might surprise you, or maybe not, to hear that the left intends to spend even more. Our favorite news outlet, WAPO, the Washington Post, explains. Manchin, that's Senator Joe Manchin, says he has reached a deal with Schumer on economy climate bill. Senator Joe Manchin on Wednesday reached a deal with Democratic leaders on a spending package that aims to lower healthcare costs, combat climate change, and reduce the federal deficit, marking a massive potential breakthrough for President Biden's long stalled economic agenda. The new agreement, brokered between Manchin and Senate Majority Leader Charles E. Schumer, opens the door for party lawmakers to try to advance the measures next week. It caps off months of fierce debate, delay, and acrimony, a level of inflation that some Democrats saw as detrimental to their potential fate ahead of fall's critical elections. They're going to lose every single one. Under the deal, Schumer secured Manchin's support for roughly $433 billion in new spending, most of which is focused on climate change and clean energy production, the largest such investment in U.S. history. Seems like they're breaking a lot of records these past couple years in, in regards to spending. The Democrats coupled the spending with provisions that aim to lower healthcare costs for Americans, chiefly by allowing Medicare to begin negotiating the price of select prescription drugs on behalf of seniors. It's truly incredible, the stupidity of our government when it comes to spending. As mentioned in the past, if I did that, I'd have to file bankruptcy. I have loans out there, student loans, car loans, house loan. If I just stopped paying them or printed my own money, I would be in jail. Printing more money, scientifically, equals more inflation. This proposed bill is essentially the love child of Build Back Better and the Green New Deal. I really hope it doesn't pass. The results will be more inflation and increased energy cost. Al Gore must be salivating on his private jet right now. Man, Bear Pig is real. Now on to our main story, which is more of a compilation of events over the years. The year is 2022, right now, and the justice system is a complete joke. From top to bottom, the whole thing is being dismantled and politicized right in front of our eyes. Just watch the news. The Sixth Amendment is essentially dead. Let's recap. April 20th, 2021, Derek Chauvin, you know the name. He was a Minneapolis police officer who was found guilty and sentenced to 22 years in prison for the murder of George Floyd. George Floyd being a person with enough fentanyl in his system to kill a horse. No lie. George Floyd, who contributed nothing to society in life and caused billions of dollars in chaos and death. Here are some highlights from his rap sheet. 1998, 10 months in prison for armed robbery. 2002, 8 months in prison for cocaine. 2004 and 2005, 10 months in prison for cocaine. So there's 4 months where he was, I was going to say behaving himself, but obviously doing cocaine and breaking the law. 2007, 5 years for armed robbery of a pregnant woman in her own home. He held a gun to her stomach, to her unborn child. This man, they constructed statues, gold statues of George Floyd, created murals, and even named state and federal bills after him. He was their demigod. But facts are facts. He died of an overdose, not from suffocation or a knee to the back of the neck. It was weird how they had 2 death reports, 2 coroners, that said 2 different causes of death, right? That's never happened in history. How was the body 2 places at once? Derek Chauvin did not get a fair and free trial. The media was following these jurors on their bus, and they actually got in trouble by the judge for it. And you know for a damn fact, they would have released the names of those people if he was found innocent. The correct verdict was not an option for the American people that were on this jury, due to safety concerns. We even had our own government calling for a guilty verdict. That's a violation of the Constitution. Checks and balances, people. Chauvin was used as an example. Do not go against the machine. Now, myself and millions of Americans watched the full 20-minute video of George Floyd resisting arrest and refusing to get into the police car. It's pretty simple. Don't resist arrest, and there's a good chance the cops will treat you with respect. Don't resist arrest, and you won't die from the cops. They might have even given him the Narcan needed to come back from the overdose, and George Floyd would still be alive today. The cops present with Derek Chauvin were just found guilty, NBC reports. 2 former Minneapolis officers sentenced to prison for violating George Floyd's civil rights. A judge sentenced J. Alexander Quang to 3 years and Tu Tao to 3.5 years for their roles in Floyd's 2020 death. Both are also required to complete 2 years of supervised release when their prison sentences end. Quang and Tao were convicted in February of depriving Floyd of his civil rights while acting under government authority when they failed to give him medical aid, and also of not intervening to stop their fellow officer Derek Chauvin from using excessive force. There you have it. His civil rights, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently, using counterfeit bills and resisting arrest is your civil right nowadays, so go out there and use it. It was proven in court, live on TV, by many witnesses that these officers broke no state laws. Yeah, the video was ugly. The whole scene, just people yelling and shouting and George Floyd resisting, it was ugly, and nobody could say otherwise. The result of these convictions will cause even more cops to retire early or find new careers. Why not? I mean, go work for a private security company. Make more money, possibly. No one wants to go to jail for doing their job. The inequality only begins there. Just recently, we saw Lee Zeldin, a Republican candidate for governor in the great state of New York, was attacked on stage by a psychopath wielding a knife kind of thing that was a ring combo. It was a sharp object. The attacker was released within 24 hours. You may have also seen the viral video of a teen in New York who was fighting a police officer. The teen jumped the subway gate, and when the cops questioned him, he turned violent. The teen has a rap sheet as long as my arm and was released from custody also within 24 hours. Let's not forget about the January 6th political prisoners being held in solitary confinement for well over a year now. We dedicate a full podcast to them and even create a Rumble video titled J6 Prisoners equals A6 Violations. Feel free to check it out. I think they're going to get reparations. What happened to liberty and justice for all? Right now, all we see is justice for some, and it all depends on your political alignment. A country requires these three things: a border, which right now is completely wide open and a mess, a common currency, which is in the total shitter, as mentioned in our quick one earlier, and then law and order. Without it, all you have is chaos and anarchy. Last week, we discussed the trial of Steve Bannon, and I told you folks I would update you. Here's the update. Bannon was found guilty. He was not able to defend himself in court or even attempt to prove his innocence. They didn't even call a witness because they knew this was a kangaroo trial. Not surprisingly, Steve is appealing the decision, as he should. Hopefully this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court so that Steve can expose these people for who they really are. There's another trial we need to keep an eye on, and that's the trial of Alex Jones. I know. Mr. Jones has a bad rep for being a conspiracy theorist and saying, the frogs are gay. They're turning the frogs gay with fluoride. However, he's predicted a lot of crazy things, and he actually just reads the news and interprets it. Similar to Bannon's trial, Alex is not allowed to prove his innocence. He explained on InfoWars that the judge has already told the jury that he is guilty, and the purpose of the trial is to find out how guilty he is. All this shit sounds like Nazi Germany. Notice the pattern here. Is this going to be the new norm? Now, per the Constitution, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and this DOJ and judicial branch have flipped the script completely. Now you are guilty until you can prove your innocence, and that's if the mainstream media and the people accept that innocence, not just your jury. It's amazing that Kyle Rittenhouse was found innocent, and thank God he was. We can't talk about inequality of law without bringing up America's favorite crackhead, Hunter Biden. The Federalist reports, FBI's false labeling of Biden's laptop as disinformation is even worse than it seems. Here's why. This scandal is no longer about the Biden family. It's about every member of law enforcement and intelligence communities who put our country at risk by failing to do their jobs. FBI whistleblowers claim that agents opened a sham investigation into Hunter Biden to brand reliable and verifiable derogatory evidence as disinformation, according to an explosive news release issued yesterday by Senator Chuck Grassley, representative in Iowa. If true, beyond exposing the FBI's role in running cover for the Biden family, the whistleblowers' claims prove significant for a second reason: by failing to thoroughly vet the evidence in its possession related to Hunter Biden, which included the hard drive for the MacBook Hunter had abandoned at a repair shop, the intelligence community ignored a momentous national security threat, namely that the Russians potentially possessed a second Hunter Biden laptop. This just adds to the Hunter Biden laptop scandal that was censored from the entire internet in the world October 2020 within hours. Let's pretend for a second that the laptop is fake. There is video evidence of Hunter committing crimes. Those videos are not fake. They are real. So are the emails that were verified via the third parties involved. Yet, no real investigation, no trial, no committee. If Hunter's last name was Trump, holy smokes, all hell would have broken loose. It would have been the biggest scandal of all time. And now we have the ultimate injustice. Merrick Garland announced that the DOJ will be investigating Donald Trump and his connection to the January 6th riots, or as the left likes to call it, the insurrection. The worst thing since the dinosaurs were extinct 65 million years ago by an asteroid. Folks, this is exactly what the J6 Unselect Committee wanted. There's been a failed impeachment attempt over J6 and a FBI investigation already. Trump did nothing wrong. It's not like everybody brought their Trump antennas that day and with a click of a button, they would have turned around and went home. The people protested that day because they were fed up with the government corruption and a stolen election. Perhaps they went about it the wrong way, though. Maybe they should have went to the streets in a fiery but mostly peaceful kind of way. Let's compare the J6 insurrection to the BLM riots. The Summer of Love. There were 500 plus BLM riots. January 6th was one day. The BLM riots lasted 7 months. J6 lasted a couple hours. There were 20 plus murders by participants during the BLM riots. 0 murders by participants on January 6th. Hundreds of small businesses were destroyed because of the BLM riots. No small business was destroyed on January 6th. Over 150 federal buildings were damaged for the BLM riots. One federal building was damaged, the Capitol, during January 6th. There's an estimate $2 billion in damage during the Summer of Love. January 6th was somehow $1.5 million in damage. They need to find a new contractor. Over 2,000 officers were assaulted during the BLM riots. 140 officers were assaulted during January 6th. The protesters were bailed out during the BLM riots of Summer of Love. And the protesters of January 6th, as you know, as mentioned multiple times on this show, are being held in solitary confinement. Now let's take a listen to Donnie Trump on J6 calling for peaceful protest.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Throw that man in jail and throw away the key. Oh my gosh, I'm literally shaking. The horror. Now compare that to the Dems supporting the Summer of Love and violence against our president at the time.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school. If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. No, I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
People will do what they do.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We're going to go in there, we're going to...
This is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
The second clip was obviously a more produced montage, and it's pretty obvious who the violent ones are and who's inciting violence. Where are the investigations into the BLM riots? Where are the committees and public hearings against those you heard in that clip, which includes the president and vice president? The answer? There are none. From this day forth, the Republicans need to toughen up and start fighting like hell to save this country. I'm old enough to remember CHOP. These BLM and Antifa terrorists literally took over a part of Seattle and named it free from the tyranny of the United States. Essentially, a declaration of civil war happened, and everybody just forgets about it. CHOP covered 6 city blocks and lasted until July 1st, 2020, when police cleared the area and eventually re-entered the precinct. A year later, cement barricades no longer surround the building at 12th and Pine, but secure fencing borders the property, and the windows are still boarded up. When you really take a look at all those examples, it's certainly frustrating, which is why it's so damn important to get these America First candidates in office and educate all of our normie friends of the obvious corruption at the highest level. Hashtag defund the FBI. Hashtag defund the DOJ. Hashtag make America great again. Now on to You Probably Shouldn't Have Tweeted, which we may have to rename Biden Shouldn't Have Tweeted. I present to you a collection of tweets from our resident in chief, all from July 25th. Brave women and men in uniform across America should never forget that the defeated former president of the United States watched January 6th happen and didn't have the spine to act. In my remarks today at Noble NATL, I made that clear. You can't be pro-police and pro-insurrection. Leaders like Governor DeSantis, Senator Marco Rubio, and Senator Rick Scott are all opposed to banning assault weapons. And to me, it's simple. If you can't support banning weapons of war on America's streets, you're not on the side of the police. On January 6th, men and women in uniform were speared, sprayed, and brutalized, faced with a mob that had been whipped into a frenzy by the lies of a defeated president. The police were heroes that day. Donald Trump lacked the courage to act. That's all they got. January 6th is literally all they have. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the kicker. For American families looking for a little more breathing room, these savings matter. And then there's a picture underneath. At the current prices, the average driver will spend $35 less a month per month for one person and $70 less a month per month for a family of 2 cars than they would if gas prices have stayed at their peak. Ignore the fact that they continue to insult our intelligence and even spelled person wrong. They spelled it P-E-S-O-N, Pessin. And that's coming from our government who runs off of trillions of dollars each year. They didn't have spell check? Amazing. A Pessin, P-E-S-O-N, is actually an instrument in the form of a staff with balls or crockets used for weighing before scales were invented. On to the TV ratings. Brought to you by the one and only RoadMN on Twitter. These ratings are important because I want you to know that you are the majority. So don't be afraid to speak your mind. This is from Tuesday, July 26, 2022, the year of our Lord. And we're going to focus on prime time, starting at the 8 p.m. slot with the homie Tucker Carlson, getting 56% of the viewers. MSNBC's All In with Chris Hayes nailed 26%, and Anderson Cooper 360 had 13%. And because we talked about News Nation, we'll throw them in there, 1.1%. 9 p.m. Handy had 50% of the viewership. MSNBC Prime had 31%, and CNN Tonight had 13%. 10 p.m. The Ingram Angle, 46% of the viewers. Last Word with L. O'Donnell, 34%, and Don Lemon, 14%. News Nation averages between 55,000 and 80,000 viewers during prime time. We'll see how that goes up when our boy Chris Cuomo joins the show. Thank you so much for checking out today's show. If you enjoyed it, tell a friend. In fact, I think you and your hypothetical friend should give it a follow. New episodes every Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern. We also upload one video a week to the Rumble account at The Morning Bean. Feel free to check out the socials. Get her Twitter at Denny London. We can continue the conversation there. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. God bless and Cue the music.